Good morning. What I'm going to be doing today is showing you very quickly how you can make something very simply out of just a couple pieces of material. So if you have something around your house like an old bath towel or beach towel would probably be really fun, or a pillow slip, or old bedspread, bed sheets, a fleece blanket, but please make sure that whomever owns the material gives you permission to use it before you start cutting up something. It could even be an old curtain or something like that. But let me show you, I'm going to show you this in stages, but here's an idea of something that you might be able to make. I actually got this pattern idea from my So Cool in School patterns that I order through my classes, but it's one I've been wanting to make for a really long time, and it's very simple, it's very straightforward, and I happen to see some celebrities wearing this exact same style on television the other day. So I thought, hey, let's make it. So I'm going to show you first the materials, and then I'll cut back in a minute and show you some other stuff. So the first thing, I'm going to flip this. So the first thing you'll notice is that this is just a pillow slip that I have cut off, and you want it, this is going to be a top, so you want it to be so that it basically, that this is just about where you want your collarbone to be, and this is the bottom down here, so that you have, in with a pillow slip it already has a hem. I made sure that this pillow slip will go around my body, so you want to make sure it does that. If you need to, the next thing I'm going to show you is how to make a seam if you don't have something that will make it that easy to do. The chain I have right here is what I'm going to be using in the neckline, so that way it will pull the drawstring together at the top once I get done. Over here I have a more involved project. I had this material that I've been wanting to use. It's called an eyelet, which has this edging on the side. So this is where the bottom is, and then so I've already got that part of it started because that was a little bit more complicated. But here is the drawstring that I'll be using for the neck. And this is the lining on the inside, because the thing that you'll find with eyelet is, as I stick my hand up here, you'll notice it has holes in it, and I really didn't want people to be able to see through those holes, so I'm going to be putting this lining on. But by doing this lining, I can show you how this all goes together. So the first step is to choose your material, figure out what you're thinking about doing it. So as I said, this is the more basic, easier one. This is the more involved one. You can sort of go with your choice of what you're doing. So I've got my scissors here. So once you have a piece of material, you're going to be making the tube that's a little bit bigger than you are. If it's a tube already like this pillow slip that will work, you can do that. If not, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sew down the sides of this material, and so make it a tube. Once you have it into a tube, I'm going to make it into the trapezoid. I need to cut off the arms up here. So what I will figure out is where I want the armpit to be, and I'm going to go in about 2 inches from the edge up here, and I'm just going to cut in an angle down to where I want the armpit, and I'm going to do that on each side. Once I have my line tapered, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and I'm just going to turn this under and turn it under twice. The reason I do that twice is so that I don't have, if I just turn it over once, this edge will ravel, and I'll have these little ravelly things right there, so I want to just turn that under so that sort of traps those little ravels. And I'm going to sew it along the edge here as close as I can to that edge, down all the way to the bottom of my armpit, and then back up the other side. So I'm going to be doing that with both of these, both this piece of material and the other, and I'll be back in a minute. Once I have that step done, where I've put the hem down, it goes down around the bottom of the armpit and up, then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a casing at the top. This casing is like a little fabric tunnel that is where my neckband is going to be. If you remember, I'm going to be putting the lace, the chain through this one. Through my dress over here, I'll be using the long, oh, here I found it. Okay, here is the chain. So the chain is going to go through the casing up here, where I'm going to be using this small piece of fabric up here for this one. Now, this one is the more basic one, the one to start with, and so you basically just turn it over about 1/4 to 1/2 inch, and then you turn it over a second time, so that it is now makes, like I said, about a 1 inch to a 1.5 inch tunnel that goes along here at the top. Pin this in place, and then you're going to sew as close as you can to this little edge right here, because you don't want it to flap open like that. You want it to be nice and flat. Now I'm going to do it on this side, and I'm also going to do it up here on the back so that I have a front and a back casing. So a casing there and a casing here. For this one, if those of you, some of you have like to do more involved projects, this one, if you're doing a lining like I'm doing for this dress, I basically have the outside, which is the blue, and I have the inside, which is the cream. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew along this edge right here. I'm going to come up to the top. I'm going to leave about a 1 inch opening, and then I'm going to sew along the top. The reason I'm doing that is so that this 1 inch opening here will allow me to put the casing in, and I'll show you that part later. So anyway, either way, I need to do either a casing by itself here and here, or I'm going to do it by sewing around the outside edges if I have the 2 layers. So we'll be back in a minute. Okay, here we are for the next step. So what I've done is I've attached the lining to the inside of the dress here, and then on this I had to do a little extra because I want to have a tunnel, as I said. So this actually is not sewn on the edge here, so I have a little opening here that goes all the way across and the front, and then on the back piece here. And I've done the same thing over here where I pinned and sewed along here. Now what I'm going to do is actually put the casing in. So not the casing, the drawstring. So on this one I'm going to use the necklace, as I mentioned. On this one I'm going to use what's called a self belt, because it's made out of the same material as the actual thing. So I made a larger version of it that I'll actually be using for a belt later, just so you can sort of see how this works. So it's a long piece of material, and so again, for the drawstring, you can use a necklace. You could use one that you make yourself, and I'll show you that technique. It could be a shoestring. It could be the drawstring from another sweatshirt that you don't mind, that you never put the hood up, that you could borrow. It could be an old lanyard, a leather strap. It can be pretty much anything that you want, that you find that you think would look cool. So what I did here is I took my long piece of material, and you sew it. I actually had to put a piece in the middle because I wanted it to be twice as long. So this is, 2 pieces of material sewn together here. So it's nice and long, and then I sewed it the entire length. And then what I do is I attach, the way I like to do it is I attach a safety pin. And then what I'm going to do is just push this safety pin back into itself so that you can push it through. So I'm going to pause for a second. Be right back. Once you've got the safety pin inside this little casing here, what you're going to do is just push it along and just pull it. So it's almost like pushing a car through a little tunnel, and that's pretty much what I'm going to do, is just push it all the way through until I get all the way to the end, and it'll make a nice, like I said, can make a belt like that or a drawstring like that. Another way I wanted to show you is, like, you can also hook it. I just put the pin in the chain I'm going to use here, and then once I have whatever my drawstring I'm going to use, I do the same thing that I just did there. I'm just going to stick it into the little tunnel that I made, and I'm just going to push it all the way through. And this one I'm going to make it go all the way through both sides. I'll do that quickly, so you can sort of see how it gathers in along the top edge. As I said, I was watching television the other day, and I saw a person on a news show was wearing this kind of a neckline. It's called a halter neckline, although I've never understood exactly why it's called that. And it's pretty straightforward and easy to make. The nice thing is it turns a 2-dimensional piece of material into a 3-dimensional piece of material, so you can wear it. And then what I'm going to do is just take off my safety pin here, and then I'm going to hook my necklace back together. I don't want to lose it in there, because otherwise you'd have to start all over again. So I've got a hook there now, and I've got it. So this now becomes the way the top goes together. As you can sort of see, that's the back. Here's the top neckline. And so it sort of comes together like here. So in a couple minutes when I get both of them done, I'll show you a quick picture of what they look like actually on a human being. And once you have it to this point, you can decorate it, you could add pockets to it, you can draw on it with permanent markers or Sharpies, or you can use dye, food coloring, anything you want to embellish it and make it yours.